Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book which has got a curious history. It comes from Oxford University Press, and this is only a short review that I'm actually delivering. It's Mann and Proctor on the Law of Money, now in an 8th edition. It's been taken over and written now by Charles Proctor. I've given it a title which is very short. I've said Filthy Lucre Revisited, because actually we're talking about the whole concept of money. And as I write this and as I speak about money, a lot of things are changing. We have a new king on the throne, we are going to get new banknotes, but a very large amount of the way in which we spend the money we earn is not now done by money in that sense, because a lot of the transactions are now done by electronic means. So the pound in your pocket or the £5 note in your pocket is not likely to be as very significant as it used to be, because, for instance, I don't carry very much cash on me anymore, because what I do is I use cards. And I say that because I can see that there are changes that are taking place, but in essence you still have the concept of this thing called money. So let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a hardback and it's a big book. It's heavy. There's the side. There's nothing on the back. You see the side. Now the book itself runs to something approaching well over 800 pages. The index at the back is by paragraph numbering. Very much the style of OUP. You can see the back. There's the index there. And then you can see right at the end, chapter 33, paragraph 33, and then the dot whatever it is, and you've got the paragraphs there, and then you've got, of course, footnoting at the bottom. If I go to the front of the book, I talk about, there we go, there's the front page there, the main front page, and you've then got a dedication rather. Now, we don't review books that we don't like. A lot of work goes into any of these books, and a huge amount of work has gone into this book, and so I like to give a proper review to the books that we have. Now what we have got here is a foreword to the 6th edition. This is the 8th edition. It says, "My father never said what or who actually inspired him to write the legal aspect of money," because that's where this book came from. But what you've got here is a history of the book itself, because the book has been around for a long time. This edition was published in 2022, but the very first edition appeared in 1939 at the outbreak of, just before the outbreak of World War II. And the David Mann, who wrote the 6th edition, that was on the 12th of October 2004, talks about how his father had actually written the book, and the way in which it had developed over the years. And again, the preface to the 8th edition is much shorter. That's now written by Charles Proctor, and he's prepared it, obviously looking very much at the changes which have taken place since the 6th edition itself was prepared, and obviously he's now looking at trying to address the advent of cryptocurrencies and the implications for a monetary system. And he says the text is based on materials which were available to me as at the 31st of October 2021. The book appeared in 2022, and I'm actually recording this in 2023. The preface to the first edition is interesting because it talks about the germination of the book itself, and that was actually written on the 12th of October 1938. So you see it's a very old book. Then you've got the content section, and this is why I was interested in this book, because you have at the beginning the concept of money and the monetary system. There are a number of parts. The first part is the concept of money itself and monetary systems. Part 2 is the private law of monetary obligations. Part 3, the principle of nominalism rather. Part 4, exchange controls, exchange rates and sanctions. Part 5, public international law of money, which of course is very, very important today in the global economy. Part 6, Monetary Unions and Other Forms of Monetary Organisation. And of course you've got, as I say, 33 chapters in total. Then you have a substantial number of cases, all of which are very interesting, quite a large number of cases in total. And then after that you get, as usual, table of legislation. And the legislation is basically of specific statutes, but you also have European legislation involved as well. And then secondary legislation, which are the regulations thereafter, and then treaties and conventions at the end. Then you have a very useful list of abbreviations, which I did find very helpful. You can see the various references that are made throughout to textbooks and legislation, report periodicals and so forth. Then you've got the structure. Part 1, you see you have a little introduction right at the beginning, which says the first part of this text considers both the concept of money and the nature and organisation of the monetary system. And it explains basically what's in the chapter. Then you have an index for the chapter, then they launch straight into the book itself, and you can see the structure again, the paragraph numbering and the footnotes on the side. And it runs through all the way through like that. Damages in tort is dealt with here, monetary obligations, unliquidated amounts and so forth. So you can see the book is a very, very substantial work. So what do we say about it in very brief terms? Well, I'm taking the commentaries from the actual statements made about the book. I say what a book for bankers, because that's exactly what it is. I think it's a fascinating read, and bearing in mind the history of it and the fact that the original author, Mr. Mann, had clearly had a lot of issues prior to the beginning of the Second World War, having come to this country, and obviously the book had been around for some considerable time until it was finally published just before the beginning of World War II. What we've got here is a book which is the leading work on monetary law obligations and monetary conduct, which is now obviously in its 8th edition. And that's spread over a very long period of history, because we're looking at a substantial number of years over which the book has seen very substantial changes in the way that we look and deal with money. It's still there, but it's looked at and dealt with through the technology in a slightly different way. The book itself is the only comprehensive treatment of both public and private law, the private law of money, from English, European and international law perspectives. I think that's an important point to bear in mind, because we have a global economy today, and obviously Charles Proctor has substantially changed a number of things to take account of modern practices and processes. And what we get here is a single source which deals with all issues relating to monetary law. What the book does is it looks very carefully and reviews current and controversial legal matters, which include the analysis of issues arising from the financial crisis that we had at the beginning of the 21st century, such as things like the legal aspects of quantitative easing, which of course is basically printing money on a scale which we really haven't seen before. And when one thinks about it, it'd be lovely if we could all print money, but at the end of the day that's down to the governments themselves. But again, it's useful to see the way in which the book deals with that particular issue, because there are arguments for and against that type of policy. What I did like about the book is that it's carefully structured into topic areas, which allows us as the practitioners and the users of the book to access sections relevant to what we're specifically researching, or whatever our interests or problems may be with practice. What we've got with the new edition, which Charles Proctor has worked very assiduously on, is we've got updated material to reflect developments in this field of monetary law, such as the awards of interest by way of damages following the decision in Sempra Metals. Now, I know that many of you as practitioners will agree with me that we are in this country incredibly mean when it comes to the awards of damages, and I'm afraid we are, especially in particular areas which I'm involved in, like road traffic and PI matters, and also the award of damages in general terms is not in fact very generous. And at the end of the day, remember my basic motto, never go to law if you can try to avoid it, because at the end of the day there isn't a great deal of money you get out of it. There may be the occasional cases, but not that many. We then have a very useful analysis of the consequences of Brexit. Now, we're now in the post-Brexit era, in my view, and obviously we need to look at the effect of Brexit on monetary law. Whether you are a Brexiteer or a Remainer is now basically neither here nor there. I was a Remainer, I have always been, haven't changed my view. I wait to see whether Brexit is going to be the wonderful thing that people claim it will be. I don't think it will be at all, but it was the will of the people. That will has been carried out against a lot of opposition, and we then have to carve our own new identity within the global markets within the world. Then we have a discussion of the impact of virtual currencies such as Bitcoin on the definition of money. Now, I come from a school of thought that considers cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and so forth, as effectively a criminal charter. It allows a lot of people to hide money or money launder in a particular way. I want to be careful with what I say, but I don't like the concepts of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. It is obviously something which the criminal fraternity would love and do love, and it is used internationally in many ways which are frankly both immoral and in my view illegal. However, that's a different point of view, but you do have information about how the systems work here. Then also consider what are known as the currency wars, and there's a further review of the legal restrictions against the manipulation of the international monetary system by certain people. And of course, this is one of the problems that we do and we will be facing, I think, very heavily in the 21st century, very serious problems. You've also got coverage of issues concerning central banking and the need, again, in a modern world, you've got to have proper processes in place, so you've got some information. There's also a significant update by Charles on both the continuing role of the International Monetary Fund and the European Central Bank in relation to the Greek crisis that took place. And remember that there have over the last 25-30 years been a lot of problems with some European countries, which of course led to a number of people wanting us to leave the European Union as far as Britain was concerned. That's part of the argument. There are a lot of other nastier reasons why people wanted to leave, but of course there have been problems with some of the economic structures in some of the European Union countries. Finally, what you have got is an interesting examination of the monetary law consequences of hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, where of course things have got completely out of control. But again, we're not looking at politics here, we're looking specifically at the structures themselves. The fact that you can have inflation, raging inflation, which means that the money has no value at all, as had happened in Germany at the end of World War I, for instance, only it's on a worse scale in many ways, is a problem which I think a lot of sensible countries need to review. The problem is that we have, obviously within the planet as a whole, we have sensible countries rather, and we also have really strange, appalling regimes who basically act just like Hitler and many other people, Stalin, where they are only interested in murdering anybody who gets in their way and stealing all their property. And I'm afraid you still have a lot of that, and that is a problem, done of course under the mask of communism. So therefore you can see the difficulties. But again, I think the book explains that, and that's the value of the new edition. The new edition was published by OUP on the 20th of December 2022. Let's just have one last look at it. There it is, side, and then just opening it in the middle. Monetary sovereignty, here we go, exchange controls, chapter 19. You can see the structure again, the paragraph numbering, and there are a lot of detailed footnotes, extremely helpful. And just one last thing, I'd like to thank Charles Proctor very much for taking over the reins of writing this book. I think it's a wonderful book for a range of people. Anybody involved in financial legal issues and bankers as well, I think, will find this book extremely helpful. So a big thank you to OUP for continuing to publish it. Thanks. Bye-bye.